Right now, we talk about the news that is just breaking within the last hour that the NFL Network is reporting the Cincinnati Bengals have made significant progress on new deals for not only T. Higgins, who has that franchise tag, but also Jamar Chase. So the Cincinnati Bengals could be bringing back not one, but the top two favorite targets for one Joe Burrow.
Yeah, they're doubling down on offense, winning games and winning Super Bowls, and that's just, I mean, it's obviously it looks good. It's going to help their quarterback Joe Burrows to continue to play at the level he's playing at. But that we saw that last year, scored a ton of points, were in a lot of games, and could have won a lot of those games. And obviously, the season could have looked differently. But defensively, they struggled. But the one person that didn't struggle was Trey Hendrickson. And if they're really close to deals for their big-time receivers, it's going to be a lot of money. So that means there's not going to be enough money to go around for Trey. So looks like Trey is going to be heading out, and, I mean, they're going to try to win games by scoring a lot of points.
And he has requested a trade. He's going to be in the final year of his deal and is wanted out of Cincinnati. And this also on the heels of the Max Crosby deal and the Myles Garrett contract.
Yes.
And Trey Hendrickson, I think, is making $16, $18 million for 2025. And you're seeing other edge rushers get $35 million. I don't think he's going to get Myles Garrett money at $40 million.
I do not think so either.
But I think that Trey Hendrickson should be asking for that. He led the NFL in sacks this past year. Like, there's value to it. Yeah. It is the decision of the Cincinnati Bengals. And, Kerry, if I'm sensing correctly, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll let you say it.
Yeah.
Are you in the sense that the Bengals are now just extremely top-heavy because of where they are on offense, and that isn't sustainable if you want to win a Super Bowl? Is that the sense that I'm getting from you?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, obviously, yes, it's going to sell tickets, and Burrows and those guys, Burrows and Chase Higgins and Chase, Jamar Chase. Thank you. They're going to put up numbers, and they've done that since they've been in the league, right? And we've seen what that looks like. But we've also seen when Cincinnati had a defense that was, I think they were top 10 that year, or they were around that like 10, 15 range where they can actually get stops and get the ball back to their guys. They made it to the Super Bowl, right? And so that's the formula for them. They have to get to a point where they're competing on that side of the ball, because last year they couldn't even compete. And so if you lose your top game record on defense, that doesn't bode well for you.
I agree with what you're saying, and I'm actually on the same page with you, and I'm not arguing or I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm almost trying to figure out a way to look at this from just a different angle. But to your point of what you're saying, last year was a bad year for Lou Anarumo's defense, so much so he's not even around anymore. He's out as defensive coordinator. Al Golden comes in from Notre Dame to lead the Bengals defense. There were a lot of players from that Super Bowl team in Super Bowl 56 on the defensive side of the ball that are no longer in Cincinnati.
Right.
A big, lot of moves made with players going in and out. Not the same defense at all. To coincide with what you're saying, I think we saw last year what happens when you have a top quarterback, top wide receiver, and a top wide receiver duo and no defense.
Yeah.
We saw that on display, and I actually think that last year was best case scenario for Cincinnati in the fact of you had Joe Burrow for the entire season. He had to play at an MVP caliber where we were considering, all right, they're 9-8, they're not even going to make the playoffs, but is he really the MVP?
Right.
Everything had to go right. Jamar Chase had to be the top wide receiver in the National Football League. T. Higgins has dealt with injuries time and again throughout the last couple of years. That kind of happened in 2024 as well. But the point being is, I think everything went right for the Bengals offensively, and it was how bad they were on defense that they maxed out at 9-8. So to your point, I'm wondering if 9-8 is your only max out if you decide to operate your franchise this way. And with the amount of dollars that you're assigning to those three players, I don't know how you field a respectable defense.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? And I think that's why if you look at just roster organization and roster building and teams that have long-term success, they're able to, sometimes make tough decisions, which is maybe we can't pay 2 top receivers to stay here, and that's part of the process, right? We can bring in another guy that may be just a step down from their second guy and T Higgins, and bring in 2 guys that can be one guy that can be an outside guy, a guy that can be a slot guy that can be really good for you, and still hold that production and also bring back your top defensive guys. So it's just there's creative ways to do this and creative ways to build and keep an organization in the place they need to be. And I just don't think Cincinnati's brain trust is having enough wherewithal when it comes to we just can't keep everybody happy sometimes, and that's part of the NFL.
It's easy to give Joe Burrow what he wants or what Jamar Chase. It's easy to do the easy thing, right? Doesn't mean it's always best for you.
Right.
A lot of times what's best for you isn't the easy thing.
Right.
And I think that's what we're saying here. I looked at the NFL and looked at the wide receiver salary position. There's one team in the National Football League that has actually 2 teams. 2 teams have 2 receivers on their own team paid in the top 10. One is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith when it comes to average annual salary. A.J. Brown's average annual salary is $32 million a year. Devontae Smith's is $25 million a year. So they're both in the top 10. But I don't think that we thought that the Eagles won the Super Bowl because of their 2 star wide receivers.
No.
The other team, the Miami Dolphins. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Wow.
And
Waddle. Wow.
I know I'm not comparing Tua and Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow's a better quarterback, and I think that Chase and T. Higgins are better wide receivers than that duo that they have in Miami.
Yes.
But you can't take away what Tyreek Hill has meant for the Dolphins over the last couple of years, even if 2024 was a bit of a letdown. Tyreek Hill at one point probably was the best wide receiver in the NFL. And what did it get the Miami Dolphins? And I think that's what you're saying. This is the Dolphins even have tried this, and it hasn't necessarily worked. And they've tried to do other deals. They brought in Bradley Chubb from, in a trade with Denver.
Yeah.
They had a lot of assets at one point. Then they lost some of their assets, whether doing deals or NFL even penalized them for the tampering of Tom Brady. Like there was a lot there for Miami, but in the end, they're like, we're going to put our eggs in this basket. We're going to bring in Tyreek Hill. We've got Jalen Waddle, and we got Tua Tagovailoa. And what do they have to show for it? A first-round wild card exit in a road game against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
And the Bengals have already been to a Super Bowl, so you're looking at it and saying, great, all right, Cincinnati, let's run it back again. I just don't think it's sustainable. And I don't think that everything can go right for Cincinnati like it did in 2024 when they didn't even make the playoffs.
Right.
Like at some point, you got to address your offensive line as well. So you got to protect Joe Burrow, who has, I don't want to say been injury prone, but has been hurt throughout his at times in his career.
Right.
And now you've got that. Yeah, I just wonder as well. I just think they're kind of taking the easy way out on this.
And what that does for a team, right? Think about how good Joe Burrows was last year. And the numbers were remarkable, and the stats, and obviously one of the most explosive teams in the league. But what that does for you is that puts constant pressure on you to go out and do that thing, to go out and do that, to score, to put up big points and outscore teams. And so what happens in those situations is you play a good team when you're right there neck and neck. Obviously, the other team's going to continue to score because your defense can't stop anybody. So it puts pressure on those offensive guys to almost overachieve every game because there's a level that I think great players can play at consistently. And it's only 2 people on that team on Cincinnati, even on the offensive side of the ball, that is great. T. Higgins is a really, really, really good receiver. Mm-hmm. So if he has any drop-off and the line can't protect, you're forcing 2 guys to go out and be superhuman every game, and you just can't do that. And so that's what happened last year. In the moments that really count with him, how many clutch turnovers did Joe Burrows have in those situations? Because he's trying to force the ball in because he's not going to get the ball back if they don't get this touchdown with 4 minutes left in the game. So it's a problem.
Express Pros brings you today's show. Don't have the right team on the court? Express Employment Professionals can help. From contract placements to full-time hires, we've got you covered. Visit expresspros.com today and let us handle your hiring so you can focus on your growing business. Here's where devil's advocate comes into play. What if this is a Dallas Mavericks situation?
Oh, here we go.
Sorry, Kerry.
I can't believe
I had to do it.
Bo, what are you laughing at?
No, straight facing here. So sorry.
I actually tried this out on Bo in our conversations pre-show, and he did not laugh in my face. So I did. So I think Bo knows what's coming here. What about if it's more important to Cincinnati to keep this trio than win a Super Bowl?
And the fact of what, keeping people in the seats is what you're saying?
Yeah, like I felt when the Mavericks traded Luka, it was so devastating that even winning a championship for Dallas wouldn't make up for the fact that those Maverick fans don't have Luka to cheer for anymore. Because I felt like he was so a part of that team and then a part of that city that winning a championship without Luka wasn't going to be the same of not only of them winning one with Luka, but of just having Luka on that team. What about if Cincinnati is saying, it's not that they're not going to compete with Super Bowls, because when you have Joe Burrow, you have a shot. You have a shot better than most teams in the league because of who your quarterback is. That is undeniable. But the fact of them saying, we could make all these moves, we could make these difficult decisions, we could let T. Higgins go, we could try to go cheap, we could try to make trades, we could invest the money somewhere else. Maybe they bring Trey Hendrickson back, maybe they don't. But the point is they want to keep this trio together because of what it means to Cincinnati. Would that make any sense to you? I'm calling it the Luka Doncic, Nico Harrison rule.
It makes absolutely zero sense to me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, those guys, Joe Burrow's obviously, you can't lose a guy like that. T. Higgins, I'm sorry. I know we want to pay him. I know he's a really good receiver. He can go kick rocks.
Okay.
And we can bring in a couple of guys that can fill that role. I'm just telling you, it's just, and even for the protection of Joe Burrow, going out and trying to score all these points, you're putting him in a position to get hurt as well because they're not sound. You got to be sound in the NFL to win.
All right, okay, another layer to this. Adam Schefter reporting that Jamar Chase wants more than $40 million a year. And he wants, whether it be 40.1 or $41 million, he wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback per average annual salary in the National Football League. That hits your ear. Are you fine with Jamar Chase being the highest paid non-quarterback in the National Football League? He'll be making, if he got $41 million a year, that's $6 million more than the highest paid wide receiver right now in the game annually, and that's Justin Jefferson at $35 million.
No.
You're not good with that?
No.
So 38 is what you think?
Yeah, what you just
36?
said. If he made $1 more than Justin Jefferson, in theory, he should be happy. And if he's really committed to winning, and what we're talking about right now, the conversation is winning Super Bowls. We know they can win games. If they want to do that, sacrifice a little bit. And I know they're young, and I know this would be his first, I guess, extended big contract. He was a first-round top guy, so he's gotten paid, but this will be the big one, so I understand it. But there are dollars and there are ways to construct this thing, and he can be re-upped in the next offseason where, he made 36.1. They can move things around to where the annual salary goes up the dollar amount with guaranteed in the next season. There's ways to do it.
The tricky part about it, and I think that's a really good point, it's you're not just trying to top Justin Jefferson, you're trying to top Myles Garrett.
Right.
But by blowing past Justin Jefferson, the next wide receiver that's up for the contract is not going to reach $41 million. No. They're going to be very few. So Jamar Chase is going to be the highest paid wide receiver if he gets that $41 million for a while in the National Football League. So that isn't a team thing. That's not the Heatles kind of taking different contracts in Miami to fit LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Not that they took extreme discounts, but everybody wasn't maxed out. Some people took a little bit less here. That's not what you're getting in Cincinnati. So maybe another reason why it's not going to work.
Would you guys feel differently about all of this if it was a team other than the Bengals about to allocate all these resources?
I will say this. I know you're not getting at this, but I've thought about this. I think them going to the Super Bowl already allows them to do this. Like it's like hey, we made it to a Super Bowl already. When it's a weird way of thinking. Usually you're putting all of your eggs in the basket to get to that Super Bowl or for that point. I'm almost thinking that they're saying, our kind of work is done. Not looking them at the Bengals as the woe me Bengals, the downtrodden, the cheap Bengals. I don't look at it like that. I look at it just from a different angle of, I think them going to the Super Bowl like they did 3 years ago is enough for them to be like, all right, we did our stuff, pay us now. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter because they've already got that in their back pocket.
I just feel like when you're that team allocating all those resources to really those three guys, you have to be able to find good young defensive talent for cheap in the draft.
Right.
And the Bengals have 6 scouts total in their organization.
Right.
A team like the Rams, who they played in the Super Bowl, have 25. And like, if you're the Bengals, how are you going to find that cheap talent?
Well, we got to talk about. Think about it. We're talking about the Bengals, right? Under Marvin Lewis, they were very content with him for a long, long time of just being competitive, a team that could, make the playoffs here and there, and never won a playoff game. Like it's crazy. He was there for how long? I know 10+ years, and they never won a playoff game. They made it a couple of times. So to your point, being content with we already got our Super Bowl could be a thing, but it irks me.
They were a penalty, a 15-yard late hit out of bounds penalty from taking the Chiefs into overtime and possibly beating them again.
Oh yeah,
for
sure.
So,
yeah.
So it's so like all of that is gravy. To Bo's point of only having 6 scouts,
they need to hire me then.
Well,
I mean, I guess they don't have any money, so probably.
Yeah, I was
not.
gonna say now they just like to his point, it's like that you better have better scouts so you can find those diamonds in the rough. And I think they're thinking, well, who cares who we get because we can only pay them X amount anyway, and if they're any good, we're probably not going to be able to keep them long term.
Dan, I can scout from home. I can do a home job. It can be really cool. I can just look online and see, look at guys 40 times and look how many times they bench press and probably be a better upgrade, right?
There is a theme. I think you could. I think you'd have to fit it in during your studio time in scouting.
I know.
There is the conversation that we've had over the last 15 years, I would say, in the NFL, and what star receiver has really led you to a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Cooper Kupp, I think, obviously was worth his
during that run, yes.
Oddly enough, against Cincinnati in Super Bowl 56.
Mm-hmm.
That ended up happening. If the Bengals hold on to their 28-3, Julio Jones, I think, is a part of that conversation. But really, there hadn't been. And I think that the bigger question then was what duo of wide receivers? You had greatest show on turf with the Rams in Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. Win their Super Bowl like they did Super Bowl 34. You had Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison with the Colts in Super Bowl 41. But again, in that game, outside of a busted coverage from Reggie Wayne, it wasn't a great offensive game for the Colts. It's also just the point of, do you need great wide receivers to win a Super Bowl? And
to your point, that Ram one, I mean, obviously Holt and Bruce were great, but the person on that team that won them that Super Bowl and made things so much easier for those guys wasn't either one of them. It was Marshall Faulk.
Oh yeah,
he comes to the game, and that's the number one guy you game plan for. Like those guys were great, and I'm not taking anything away from them. They're Hall of Famers, we know that. But Marshall Faulk was the main sticking point there.
That's a good point.